Hey guys, it's LegoMatic9, and today I'm going to be doing part 2 of my custom LEGO minifigures from Game of Thrones. This series of figures is one that I've had planned for like over a year now, and I'm happy to say that I was finally able to do them, especially in time for the series finale this weekend. So many other projects have been getting in the way of me making these guys, but I'm just really happy I made it in time for the finale. I'm really excited to see how the show ends, even though I've heard it might be a disappointment. But anyway, in this video, I've got 8 brand new custom LEGO minifigures to show you guys, consisting of Jon Snow in his King of the North look, Sansa Stark, the Hound, Daenerys Targaryen, Tyrion Lannister, Jaime Lannister, Cersei Lannister, and the Night King. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a closer look at these minifigures. Funny thing about this Jon Snow is that it's not even mine. This was sent to me by DaLastPrime to include in this video because I thought it'd be kind of weird to never have a King of the North look for Jon in any of my videos, and he has the best version out there, so I don't even want to make my own at that point. So I asked Shane to send his over so I can include it in here, and he did, so I'm really thankful to him. Now, the cool thing about this figure is that it is a huge collaborative project between, I think, 4 customizers worked on this. So as I'm explaining all the little details on this guy, I'll explain who made what. So starting off with Long Claw. Now, the pommel and the guard area of Long Claw were sculpted by Sandor, and he did a very good job at this. This is so much better than my version. So you can just see the really cool wolf pommel on there. It's just great. I can just turn it all the way around so you guys can see that a little better. But he sculpted that. And then Shane painted it up, and he also sculpted the guard part, and then the actual blade is just a modified Brick Arms Claymore blade that Shane just modified and glued in there. Now, on the figure, the main part of this that I did was the tunic. I sculpted the tunic to match my my Ned Stark and my Robb Stark, because it would be cool to just keep up that consistency. And then I also painted the arms. I think Shane did the fabric work for the belt, and then I also did the fabric work for the little under tunic there. He used electrical tape for the wrists as well as the boots. And then this gorget here, this breastplate is sculpted by Sandor, and he did a great job, especially with those little dire wolves on there. And then that was painted up by Shane, and it just looks really good. That metallic finish he has on there just looks outstanding in my mind. The face was entirely painted by Shane. I think he used a Legolas head as a base, and then he just kept the eyes and painted everything else. This is actually the head that I based mine off of, so I'll bring my Jon in here so you can see where I got inspiration for this. I think Shane's is a little better. I think he captures the sadness of Jon in his face a little better, but that's up to you guys to decide. Now, the hair was sculpted by Jerdfigs. I think he used a widow's peak hair as a base, and then he sculpted the back on the little knot at the back. So that looks really good. And then everything, like I said, was painted by Shane. So there is Jon Snow in his King of the North look.
Sometimes when I'm trying to understand a person's motives, I play a little game. I'm a slow learner. It's true. But I learn.
Next figure is Sansa Stark. Now, on my second rewatch of Game of Thrones, I liked Sansa a lot more, so I decided to make her for this video. She also goes along really well with Robb, with Ned, Jon, and Arya. So now at this point, I pretty much just need to make Catelyn and Bran, and my Stark collection will be complete. Yes, I'm forgetting Rickon, and I don't care about Rickon at all, so I'll never make him. But the other two, I think, are very likely for me to make them. But I'm really pleased with how Sansa turned out. I really like her outfit that I made her in, which is like her Lady of Winterfell look from Season 7. I just really like the colors on this a lot, even though they are kind of dull and gray, but I really liked some of the shading I did, especially on this bottom part of the dress here. So that's made out of fabric, and then I painted up in, I think, pavement, and then I gave it some dry brushes in a few types of brown, and then maybe a black, I can't remember, but I just really like the shading on that. And moving up, she's got a belt that I made out of this really thin, pliable plastic material. I got, I think, at Joann's. So if you guys are interested in that, it comes on this big roll, so you can cut off however much you want. I can show that in a video if you guys are interested, but I used that, cut it up, glued it on, and then I used E-tape for the belt. She's got some fur on her like torso, so I just used fabric to achieve that look, and I think that's pretty good. I painted that up. She's got E-tape for the little straps underneath that chain, and then I used an actual chain and then some Procreate for the circle bit for her necklace. I just really like how that looks. Her cape is a Cape Madness cape with the fur at the top painted in a lighter gray, almost like a white. And this was also done by Shane because I don't trust myself when painting this fur anymore. But he did a really, really good job at that. So I'm really pleased with that. The head is just the Lois Lane head, or the one chick from Jurassic World, with the eyebrows painted, with the lips painted, and then a little like mole painted right there. You can kind of see it. So I think the likeness works. It's not completely accurate, but I'm still pretty pleased with it. The hair is the Luna hair from the first series of Harry Potter collectible minifigures, and I opted to use this hair while it's not as accurate as it could be, and I could have sculpted probably a more accurate one. This one I liked a lot because it was molded to where it could fit over something on the back. So I think the Luna figure came with like a little like purse or a satchel or something, so the hair was molded so it like extended off the torso a little bit. So there's a little gap, and I was like, that is absolutely perfect for this cape. So I didn't have to cut off any fur, didn't have to modify the hair at all. It just fit right over that, and I'm just really pleased with that. So yeah, the sculpt isn't perfect, I know, but I just liked the shape of it a lot better just because it worked for the functionality part of this figure. The hair was painted in that orange color and then brushed in a brown to give it a little more depth. But yeah, that is pretty much it for Sansa Stark. Before we move on, I wanted to show some updates that I did on some of my older Game of Thrones figures, specifically on the Starks. So with Robb Stark, he has a new cape. The older cape had the fur part that was all matted down because it put way too much paint on it, but this one has a lot better of a paint job on it, and that is thanks to my friend Shane. He helped me out with painting that because he's pretty good at painting those fur bits. For Jon, I made a new hairpiece for him, and this one looks so much better than the old one. The old one just looked really sloppy, and I wasn't the best at sculpting hair then anyway. So this one's definitely a lot better. I used the Mad Eye Moody hair and sculpted a little widow's peak and then painted it up, and it looks so much better. And then the last one is for Arya. I think I talked about how I wanted to do this, but I made a new version of Needle for her, and this one is just far more accurate than the old one, which I have right here. Let me grab that real quick. So this is what the old one looked like. Not very accurate. So there's just a few updates on some older figures.
I have been sold like a brood mare. I've been shamed and betrayed, raped and defiled. Do you know what kept me standing through all those years in exile? Faith. Not in any gods. Not in myths and legends. In myself. In Daenerys Targaryen.
Here is Daenerys Targaryen. Now, Dany wears like a million outfits throughout the entirety of the series, so it's kind of hard to pick just one to make. So this outfit that I chose is from Season 8, Episode 4, I believe, and I really liked this outfit just because it had that nice off-white look with the red. It was better than the gray outfit from Season 7 where she's on Dragonstone with the red cape and everything. I was thinking about making that one, but then I was like, well, I've got like 3 or 4 other figures in this part that are gray, so I wanted to add some color. The other outfit I was thinking about doing was the blue outfit from one of the earlier seasons, but I just didn't think it would blend that well just because it's from one of the earlier seasons, and all these figures are from their later looks, so she would match these guys a lot better. Now, onto the actual figure here. She's got brown boots painted on with a black trim at the bottom. Her dress, the lower part, is made out of that same sheet of plastic that I was talking about for Sansa. I wrapped it around and then sculpted on the front to make the transition between the plastic and the actual torso a little more seamless. I kind of could have done a better job on the corners here, but you can't really notice it that much. Now, the dress is painted in this kind of off-white, kind of gray color, and then it has a silver trim. And then I used a darker red to do kind of like the fur that's poking out from underneath that trim. So those red lines aren't meant to be exactly clean or straight or anything like that. So keep that in mind. Don't be like, oh, it looks messy. It's supposed to look a little messy. I did that on purpose, you know. Other than that, her torso just has the capes at the back. They're just made out of fabric. Just have this kind of tucked underneath her hair. She has the little chain that's holding those capes wrapping around the side of her torso, and that's just made out of that same plastic, and then painted up in a chrome silver color from Model Masters. Her head is just the Kira head from the Solo sets because it's, you know, Emilia Clarke, so it's perfect. Then the hair was a modified hair piece. It was from the Friends set. And then what I did is I used the hair that's falling over the shoulders here. This is from a completely different hair piece. I don't really know which figures it came on, to be honest. I just bought it off Brooklink. I can't name it. Oh, it's from Scarlet Witch, I think. Yeah, Scarlet Witch uses that hair. It's just got the parts that come down over her shoulders, and I cut those off of the hairpiece, and then I sculpted to transition the two together, and I think I did a very good job at that, because they transitioned very nicely, so I'm pretty proud of that. And then I painted it up in a tan color, and then washed it in a white and another lighter tan color to make her hair look as bleached as it is. So yeah, that is pretty much it for Daenerys Targaryen.
You don't seem to understand the situation.
I understand that if any more words come pouring out your cunt mouth, I'm gonna have to eat every fucking chicken in this room.
You lived your life for the king. You're gonna die for some chickens.
Someone is.
Now this was a figure I've been dying to make ever since I started watching Game of Thrones, and it is Sandor Clegane, otherwise known as the Hound. Now the Hound is one of my favorites, if not my #1 favorite character in Game of Thrones at this point. I just absolutely love him. I had so much fun making this guy. I probably put the most amount of work into him just because I wanted him to be perfect, and I think I did a pretty good job at capturing the essence of the Hound. So a lot of work went into this guy, like I said, but we'll go ahead and start with the sword. The sword is just a Brick Arms Claymore that I modified a little bit by kind of just bending the guard parts up a little bit. I painted the blade in a steel color, painted the little ends of that in gold, painted the pommel in gold, and then painted the grip in a dark brown. But go ahead and just take this out of his hand to get that out of the way for now. Now, one of the things you guys probably notice is that the Hound is a big guy. He's tall, and I extended his legs and his arms using a technique that I've always done. If you guys are interested in extending those legs, I have a tutorial on that, which you guys can click right up there and follow that if you're interested. But compared to Jon Snow and Arya, here he is. Jon has just the normal legs, then Arya has some shortened legs. So you guys can just see how big he is compared to your normal Lego minifigure, and then a shorter one. Now, after I extended those limbs, I sculpted all of the armor on to the arms and then the shin armor right here. And then I painted the boots as well. And all of that armor was painted, I think, in pavement first, which is like a really dark gray color. And then I painted it in steel, which is a Model Masters acrylic color. And then I washed it in black and then did a dry brush in, I think it was brown or some brown color, just to give that kind of like old worn look. And I really, really like it. There's just a better look at that. Now, the torso armor was made using, well, first, the waist bit was made using that plastic material I was talking about before. So it wraps all the way around and it's really thin. And then over top that, I used E-tape for the little strips of armor, which I think was a good call. And then the armor at the top here, the little gorget part, was sculpted and then painted up, and we're using that same method for the arms and the legs. He's got a little E-tape for the straps, and then he has a fabric belt that wraps all the way around, like so. You guys can just see all that. Back's a little messy, but you know, you're not going to really be looking at his back. Now, his head was one of the things that was giving me a rough time, mainly just the hair, but his face was just that Dastan head from Prince of Persia, or whatever his name is. I modified that by first painting the beard and the eyebrow, and then using an X-Acto knife, I carved out the burnt side of his face. So I'll take that hair off, just because it might. Let me take him out of here real quick. Here he is with his hair off, just so you guys can get a better look at that, to see that I did carve it, and then I painted it in a lot of different colors. I used some tans, some fleshes, some reds, and everything like that, just to make that pop, and I think that looks really, really cool. And then there's just, you know, face on the back there. But then his hair was giving me some trouble because I was wanting to use just that normal, like, long hair that the Dastan figure came with from Prince of Persia. But I was talked out of that by Shane, and I'm glad he did, because I used the old man Luke Skywalker hair, and it looks so much better. So I completely, like, chopped off a corner of it and then resculpted the bangs there so they kind of drop down more like the Hound's. And I just think that looks really, really good. So there he is. Sandor Clegane, otherwise known as the Hound. You know I'm going to have to make a mountain after this, of course, to go along with him. But, yeah, there is the Hound.
I pledged to ride north. I intend to honor that pledge.
And that would be treason.
Treason?
Disobeying your queen's command, fighting with her enemies, what would you call it?
Doesn't matter what I'd call it.
This next figure is another character that I loved, at least for the first 7.5 seasons until the writers forgot how to write. Jaime Lannister. I made Jaime in his Lannister army outfit just because I really like the look of the red and the gold armor. It just stands out the most compared to all of his other outfits, and in my batch of figures, he stands out pretty well. So I'm really, really happy with how he turned out. So we'll start off with his sword, which is just a Brick Arms Claymore that I modified by just cutting off part of the blade down here. I don't know why I made this sword now that I think of it, because he loses this sword in Season 1, I think, and then he gets Widow's Wail in Season 7 and 8, and this is based off of his Season 7 look. So again, I don't know why I didn't make Widow's Wail instead of this sword, so I guess I'm just stupid. But anyway, I might go back make that at some point, but for now, this will do. Onto the actual figure, his boots are painted up in a brown color. He's got some E-tape for the straps, and then a black trim. For the armor around the waist, I used that really thin plastic material that I've been talking about as a base for the, I guess, the tunic, and then the armor was sculpted on top of that using Procreate and then painted up. Above that is just a fabric belt, which was painted up in brown and has some gold details on it, and all of those bits wrap all the way around to the back, including that armor. Now, the torso armor was sculpted by Sandor, then I painted it up. I've had this sitting around for like a year now, so I was really happy to finally get around to actually painting that. But I painted that in red, gold, and black, and then I washed it in a black color, which made it look a little older, and I just really, really like that. Same thing with the shoulders, painted them in silver and black, and here's just a better look at that lion sculpt at the top of his shoulders here. I made Sandor do this because I knew it wouldn't look good if I did it, and he did a pretty dang on good job sculpting a lion's head onto a little shoulder like that. So there's the other one, and then I sculpted the elbow armor, which isn't anything special, and then painted it up. He's got his gold hand on his right side here, just a Lego metallic gold hand. The head is just an Aquaman head that I modified by painting the stubble and then painting the eyebrows, as well as some other facial features such as around the mouth and around the eyes. I don't think the likeness is 100% Jaime Lannister, but I think it works, which is what I was aiming for, because I wasn't really sure how exactly to get his likeness. I think it's fine. I think I could do better in the future, but for now I think this will work. And then the hair is just the Mutt Williams hair that I painted in a dark tan, washed in a light brown, and then painted a little bit of gray on the sides there. But yeah, that is pretty much it for Jaime Lannister. Again, I'm really, really happy with this look for him. And thank you to Sandor for helping me out with the sculpt. So, there's Jaime.
That's what I do. I drink, and I know things.
Continuing on with the Lannisters, here is Tyrion. Now, to account for Tyrion's size, I had to change the proportions of a lot of the actual parts on this figure. So if we hold up Arya here, you can just see how small he is compared to her, even though she's pretty short already. And then if we bring in Jaime just as our reference for our standard Lego-sized minifigure, there he is like that. So he is quite shorter than the other two, which is pretty accurate. Now, when I say I changed the proportions of these Lego figures, what I mean is, well, I used these short Lego legs because I felt like that'd be perfect for Tyrion, but I also shortened the torso and I shortened the arms to match the size of those legs. So he doesn't look too goofy. He looks like an actual dwarf would be, where their proportions are just kind of shrunk down except for their head. So on the figure, I used that clear plastic like I've been talking about for the extension of the shirt, and then I used E-tape for the belt, and all that was painted up. I sculpted the shoulder bits as well, since his shirt kind of has broad shoulders on it. And then Sandor actually sculpted the hand of the king, or hand of the queen pin, I guess, in this case. So that looks pretty nice, painted that up in silver and glued it on there. The face is just a Hagrid head that I ended up modifying quite a bit by painting the beard, the eyebrows, parts of the eyes, some wrinkles, and the scar. And then the hair is just the Hobbit hair that was painted up in a different color and then washed in brown. Other than that, he has a wine goblet as his accessory. And yeah, he was pretty simple. The only hard part with him was just the face and then doing all the line work on the torso. But, you know, that wasn't too bad compared to some of these other guys. So that is pretty much it for Tyrion. Relatively simple, but still, I think he looks a lot like him. To finish off the Lannister trio, here is Cersei. Now, the outfit I made her in is the one she wears at the end of Season 6, I believe in the finale. She wears this outfit during a very important and prominent scene, and so I figured, why not make her in that outfit? That's my favorite outfit of Cersei and just my favorite scene of hers in general, so I thought it'd be appropriate to make her in this outfit. Now this figure stands out from all my other ones just because she has this dress piece, and it's the first time I've ever used that. Usually for dresses, I would just wrap e-tape or fabric or whatever around a minifigure's waist and call it a day, but this works a lot better than that, especially for the dress she was wearing. It kind of sprays out at the bottom, so I figured using this piece would be the best call. And so for this dress, I painted it in gunmetal first, and then I used black to paint all of those little details, and you can just imagine how annoying it was to paint all of those little stitches, all those little lines. It was pretty annoying, but I was so happy to be finished with it when I was done. In terms of sculpt, I sculpted the shoulder pads, or shoulder jewelry, whatever you want to call them, and then I painted them in silver and gunmetal. I used real chain for her necklace piece or whatever, just the part that's going across her chest. Her head is just the Ray head, and then I painted on the cheekbones and a little mouth detail. And honestly, I think that's one of the best likenesses I've ever done. Even though it's Ray's head and it's pretty simple, I still think it looks a lot like Cersei. The hair is just the Mutt Williams hair with the bangs re-sculpted to fit her haircut, and then the crown was then sculpted, and then everything was painted up. So, other than the copious amount of painting on the torso, this figure was pretty simple, but I'm just really, really happy with how she turned out. The last figure I have to show you guys is the Night King. Now, I never really anticipated on making the Night King or really any White Walkers at all, but after I saw the Battle of Winterfell in the first half of Season 8, I figured, you know, if I want to make a Night King, I need to do it now, because if I don't do it now, I never will. So I opted to do it now, and I'm really, really happy with this guy. I do have a few gripes, but I'll get to those when I'm talking about the figure. Now, this guy was a pain in my ass. There's a lot to go over, so we'll start off with the spear. His ice spear was just made using a Lego bar for the actual staff part, and then I used a Lego window piece for the tip of that spear, and then dry brushed that in white to make it look more like ice, and dry brushed the staff in a lighter gray to make it look a little more worn and kind of like a tree branch or something. Now, there's a lot to go over on this guy, especially in terms of sculpt and paintwork. So we'll start where it's simplest, down at the legs. I just used E-tape for the boots, and then I used cloth for his like waist cape area where he's got, I think he has got 3 layers of cloth down there. There's a little bit of sculpted armor underneath this belt, and then I have a fabric belt that wraps all the way around the figure like so. You can just see the sculpt on the back as well. Now, the base layer of the sculpt was made out of Procreate, which is a really, really thin sheet of Procreate that I then rolled the grip of my X-Acto knife in to get that nice texture you see in there. That first base layer of Procreate, you see that texture? Yeah, that like crosshatch, yeah, that's on the back, on the shoulders, then also on his arms as well. So you can see that on the front. I painted all of the armor in a base coat of pavement, and then I washed that in like a semi-gloss black, and then I went over it with 3 shades of matte gray. I used like a darker, a mid, and then a lighter gray, and then finally a little bit of white in there to make it look like his armor. Then I also sculpted that little medallion as well, and just all of the other armor bits on top of that base layer. On the arms, you can see I also have the armor sculpted on there with that same X-Acto knife grip pattern. Then I also have the straps on the arm and on the wrist made out of E-tape. Added some painted detail to the hands to make them look a little less simple. Now the head is where a majority of the work came in, because the sculpting part wasn't hard. It was just sculpting a few geometrical shapes, some chevrons or whatever, and doing some patterns. It wasn't anything too hard, but the head was an annoyance. It was like making Darth Maul, but worse, because he's got so much paintwork on him. This is my first like 100% painted head. With Darth Maul, I was able to follow the pattern of the print, whereas this guy, it's like you had to do it all from scratch. So I started off by sculpting the dome of his head, and then I sculpted all of the horns individually, and then glued them on, and then I painted a base layer of blue, and then I dry brushed that with several coats of white to make it look a little less, you know, a little less teal and more icy, I guess. And then I painted the eyes using like 3 layers of paint. I've got some black, some blue, some white, and then a mid blue. And then I painted all of the little lines and wrinkles and etchings, whatever he has on his face on there. Now, my only complaint with this guy is this part right by his lips. This part right here, because it kind of gives an illusion that it's a nose. Now, the Night King has a giant nose, but noses on Lego figures don't work. Now, that was not supposed to be his nose, and it kind of looks like it. So I'm just telling you guys now, I didn't intend on making that look like a nose. It's just supposed to be the lines above his mouth and on his lip. So sorry if you guys think it looks like that, but that was not my intention. But it's kind of too late to get rid of it now. I also used some white to go along these sides of all this blue in there, just to give it a little more depth. I also used a gloss varnish for the eyes too, to make them look a little more glowy. Yeah, that is pretty much it for the Night King. I think I've covered everything. I just really like how this guy turned out, to be honest. Just the paintwork is some of my best on the head. Even though it gets kind of messy towards the back there. I'm just really happy that I was finally able to paint this face. I was really, really worried about that, but I think it looks like him enough to where you guys can appreciate it. So that is going to be it for the Night King and for all of my custom figures for Game of Thrones Part 2. Let's go ahead and end off this video. Alright guys, that is going to be it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. This has been a project that I've been wanting to do for well over a year now. Just make some of these figures, and I finally got around to it before the series ended. So that's always a plus. I do have a lot of other Game of Thrones figures that I'd love to make. I'm not sure if I'll do those like immediately after this video. I might just take a break for a little bit. But you know, I do have a lot that I want to make, and I don't know when I'll get around to making the Clone Wars stuff, because right now I'm in a Game of Thrones kick, and I don't know when I ever will be. But the figures I have in mind for Part 3 would be Jorah, Brienne, Tormund, Beric, Davos, and Bran. And then Part 4 would be Tywin, Theon, Varys, Sam Tarly, the Mountain, and Grey Worm. I'm not really sure about some of those on the fourth list, but I do definitely want to get to the guys on the Part 3. So I'm not sure if I'll do those immediately, but I do want to make some Marvel figures as well in between, so I'll probably be working on 2 projects at once. I want to make an Iron Man Mark 85 and a Captain America, especially after seeing Endgame, and then I would need to make a Mysterio for my friend Andy before Far From Home comes out. So you guys will have that to look forward to, but if you guys have any other suggestions for other minifigures you'd like to see me make, go ahead and leave those down in the comments. If you guys are watching Game of Thrones or still watching this video, let me know which of these figures is your favorite down in the comments. And if you guys are watching Thrones, let me know what you guys are thinking of Season 8. You know, I really hope the series finale isn't as disappointing as I've been hearing. I've been hearing some pretty awful stuff about it, so hopefully some of it isn't as bad as it seems. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.